Worst punishments in history. Traditional beatdown punishments were brutal, but since we're all super chill and normal, let's look at 11 twisted ways people created pain. Number 1. Restraint punishments. From tiny iron cages designed so you couldn't stand, sit, or sleep without pain, to a man chained to a massive block, immobile, exposed, forced to live with sores and stench, to the Kang, a heavy wooden board locked on your neck so you can't eat or even scratch your face. Eventually, punishment stopped being a place you went, it became something you wore. Each version found new ways to hurt, and then came the Brank, also known as the Scold's Bridle. It was basically a metal cage strapped over the head, with an iron bit forced into the mouth to stop you from speaking. Back in 16th, 18th century Britain and Europe, the Brank was slapped onto women accused of gossiping or nagging. Usually, the iron bit was just a flat piece of metal, but in some special cases, it had sharp spikes built into it. And that's when the cruelty got real, because the moment the victim tried to speak, swallow, or even shift their tongue, those spikes would tear into the tongue, causing heavy bleeding. The cruel twist was that the more the accused cried out in pain, the worse the pain became. And because one cruel fashion accessory wasn't enough,
don't you think you went too far with this one?
Probably.
Oh God, that smile. That never means anything good.
Behold, the Heretic's fork!
Whoa! What the hell is wrong with you?
it was a metal rod with two sharp prongs at each end, one pressed under the chin, the other jammed into the breastbone, held in place by leather straps around the neck. Every swallow, twitch, or nod stabbed metal deeper into the throat and jaw, tearing flesh, drawing blood, and making even sleep impossible. Left on for hours or days, it caused infection, dehydration, and psychological collapse, multiplying the pain with every passing moment. The Heretic's fork showed up in medieval Europe, most famously during the Spanish Inquisition in the 16th-17th centuries, and was usually strapped on heretics, witches, or anyone the church wanted silenced.
What sorcery is this? I want him silenced!
Number 2. Punished by animals. Now, this part's going to take a bit. There were a lot of animals, but I'll say it up front. The most unexpected animal award goes to the goat. From throwing criminals, prisoners of war, or Christians to lions, leopards, and bears in Rome, to tossing people to alligators, crocodiles, piranhas, and venomous snakes, animals got their fair share of humans. In South and Southeast Asia, elephants were used to crush the criminals. A similar kind of punishment was handed out in medieval England, though with a brutal twist.
Now what? We don't have an elephant. We need something big.
How about that?
Ha! Perfect!
Even creatures as small as rats had their turn at tormenting humans. You've probably heard of rat torture, the so-called rat cage. Well, it was born in medieval Europe, refined during the Spanish Inquisition, and later carried over to South America under colonial rule. So the setup was simple. Stick a rat on a victim's belly, slap a metal pot over it, and heat it up. The rat panics and, to escape the heat, starts digging a hole into the victim's flesh. Another twisted form of rat torture from the 16th, 18th centuries in Europe involved burying a victim up to the neck, locking a cage around the exposed head, and filling it with starving rats that then ate the victim's face alive. And then there were punishments that went straight for brute force. In medieval France and imperial China, a punishment called quartering was used. A traitor was tied to 4 horses and pulled in different directions until the body ripped apart. Word spread faster than common sense, and Persia and Anatolia thought,
we don't have horses. Can we use camels?
Yeah, sure. Let's ruin camels, too. People even found cruelly creative ways to turn dogs into executioners. In 15th century Switzerland, a condemned man would be hung upside down between 2 starving dogs. And the dogs, driven mad with extreme hunger, tore into him until he was nothing but shredded flesh. Another medieval dog punishment showed up in 12th century Germany. Under Frederick Barbarossa, rebellious rebels were sometimes forced to become a walking mule. Here, a condemned noble was forced to carry a full-grown dog on his shoulders and march. What made it truly cruel, though, wasn't the dog. It was the march. It was no mere stroll down the street, but from one town to another. In some cases, the march could last a few days. By the end, the noble was half dead. He was left with a wrecked body, obliterated muscles, torn and bruised skin, and a bent spine that could not be straightened for weeks or even months. And finally, we have the goat. The punishment was called the goat's tongue, showing up in writings as early as the 12th century and again in the 1500s. Here's how you can do it at home. Smear some salt water on the soles of the victim and set a goat loose to lick it clean. Get this, goat tongues are basically sandpaper. The longer the goat licked, the more skin came off, until the victim's feet were raw, bleeding, and on fire with pain. Number 3. The 40-day nightmare punishment. In 14th century Milan, there was a punishment so long it lasted 40 days. They called it the Quaresima, Italian for Lent. Piece by piece, the body was destroyed. Eyes gouged out, ears and nose hacked away, lips cut off, skin ripped raw. Then the victim was strapped to the rack, arms and legs tied, his body pulled beyond its physical limits. Finally, the joints were dislocated, bones were shattered, and limbs severed one by one. To make the punishment last 40 days, the condemned were given so-called rest every other day. Not mercy, just a way to keep them alive for the full punishment. Number 4. Hamstringing a malefactor. This punishment appears in medieval Europe and is also recorded in Imperial China. The method was blunt. The perpetrator's hamstring tendon was cut. It was both punishment and deterrent. The victim was crippled for life and could no longer run or escape. A twisted form of this punishment appeared in armies across Eurasia as well as the medieval Middle East. Here, to keep soldiers from retreating or escaping, the generals cut the hamstrings of the horse. Poor guys. Number 5. Ordeal by knife. Since we're already on the subject of slicing and stabbing, here's another punishment worth mentioning. In pre-modern Europe, anyone convicted of attempted murder with a blade could be sentenced to ordeal by knife.
Hey!
The criminal's hand was placed flat on a table, fingers splayed, and his own knife was driven straight through the back of it, nailing him to the wood. And then, he was ordered to free his hand, but there was a catch. He was not allowed to touch the knife, so the only way out was to tear his own hand apart. Number 6. Death by tree. This punishment shows up in medieval German legal texts. In 1401, the town of Oberursel, near Frankfurt, passed a law forbidding anyone from stripping bark off a living tree.
Hey! Oh, God damn it.
If found guilty, they cut open his belly and nailed one end of his intestine to the tree. Then he was forced to circle around the tree until no part of his gut remained. Accounts of this punishment also show up in 1248, where a Teutonic knight in the Baltic was said to have been punished in the same way. Number 7. Pitchcapping. Now, before pitchcapping, humiliation was simple. Smear some hot tar over the culprit, toss feathers on, and parade him around town looking like the world's worst Chicken Man cosplayer. But for some sadistic minds, that wasn't enough. They wanted pain, scars, and humiliation that stuck for life. So, during the Irish Rebellion of 1798, British forces rolled out pitchcapping. Hot tar was poured into a cap, forced onto a shaved head, left to cool, and then ripped off.
Didn't tar and feathers do the job?
Oh, that's just for laughs.
And this?
This one's for pain. Oh, my friend!
Along with the cap came skin, scalp, and any hope of looking normal ever again. The punishment ended, but the festering wounds made sure the suffering did not. Number 8. Breast ripper. Now, there is absolutely no way I can draw how this one worked without getting banned on YouTube, so please use your imagination for this one. Or don't. It's pretty bad. It was a claw-like iron tool, usually with 4 sharp prongs curved outward like hooks. The device was clamped onto a woman's breast, and once forced shut and yanked away, the prongs tore flesh apart. It was used on women accused of adultery, abortion, witchcraft, or other so-called moral crimes in Europe, especially in Germany and France between the 14th and 17th centuries. Number 9. Spanish donkey. This punishment showed up in Spain during the late Middle Ages. It was basically a sharp triangular block made of wood or metal and sometimes even had spikes on it. The victim was stripped naked and forced to straddle it. The sharp edge pressed directly into the genitals and inner thighs, and prolonged straddling caused lacerations, ruptures, and often permanent mutilation of the crown jewels. To make things worse, weights were sometimes attached to the victim's feet, and as if that wasn't enough, the open wounds in the groin almost always became infected, leading to prolonged agony and often death. Number 10. The Judas Cradle. As if the Spanish donkey wasn't cruel enough, along came the Judas cradle to top it. Used all across early modern Europe, it was a wooden frame with ropes to hoist the prisoner and a sharp pyramid-shaped tip fixed at the center. Often used to extract confessions, the victim was stripped naked and lowered inch by inch onto the sharp tip. As the punishment went on, the sharp tip was pushed further and further into you know where. The victim suffered massive internal damage and intense bleeding as soft tissue and blood vessels tore apart. The open wounds rotted with infection and without medicine resulted in death. Survivors experienced loss of bladder and bowel control, disfigurement, impotence, and lifelong pain. Number 11. White torture. White torture, also called the White Room, is a modern-day punishment based on sensory deprivation, isolation, and control of environment. The cell is completely white. The walls, floor, ceiling, clothing, even the guards are wearing white clothes. To strip away sound completely, the guards wear soft shoes, no footsteps, no echoes, just silence. Even the food is white and has no taste or smell, eliminating any sensory relief from eating. There are no windows in the cell. Bright white lights illuminate the room 24 hours a day, positioned to eliminate all shadows. Without sunrise or sunset, time loses meaning. Day and night blend together, and the victim eventually becomes unable to sleep entirely. The brain turns on itself, and to fill the void, it starts inventing things: sounds, colors, voices that don't exist. Victims suffer hallucination, anxiety, depression, and paranoia. Basic functions such as walking in daylight, forming thoughts, and speaking collapse. In the worst cases, they can't tell what's real and what isn't. No wounds, no blood, just a mind breaking itself in silence. So yeah, these were some of the worst punishments in history. Different centuries, different people, different tools, but same idea: invent pain. Comment below the one you thought was the absolute worst, and if I missed one, also please let me know. Thanks for watching, and hit subscribe for more weird stuff like this. See you in the next one.